Life is not easy. There are days when it feels like the whole world is against you. Challenges come one after another. Stress, loss, disappointment, turning the mind into a battlefield. And in those moments, what matters most is not how strong you are, but what you remind yourself so you don't fall apart. That is when mantras appear. They are not hollow phrases or shallow encouragements. They are seeds of clarity, markers of resilience in the mind. The Stoics, from emperors to warriors, used them to weather their own storms. In today's video, we will explore profound mantras that help you stay grounded, navigate through crisis, and cultivate unwavering inner strength. If you're going through a difficult time, take a few minutes to listen, breathe, and return to yourself. Because you are far stronger than you think. Mantra 1. This too shall pass. When pain arrives, it often takes over the entire mind. We see nothing beyond the sorrow, the loss, or the numbness. There will be times when you sit alone in the middle of the night and feel as if time has stopped, as if you're trapped in a moment you can't escape. But that isn't true. Time always moves forward. Emotions, no matter how intense, eventually soften. Every sadness has an end, and every wound will heal, even if it leaves a scar. And what brings us back to this simple truth is the mantra, this too shall pass. Stoic philosophy does not deny suffering. It looks pain in the face and accepts it as an essential part of life. Not to complain, but to learn how to walk through it. With awareness, the Stoic understands that everything is temporary: joy, sorrow, success, failure. Nothing lasts forever. Everything comes and goes, like waves crashing on the shore. We don't need to fight the wave, nor do we need to hold on to it. We simply need to stand firm and let it pass. The mantra, this too shall pass, doesn't make the pain disappear instantly, but it reminds you that you are not the pain. You are experiencing it, but you are not it. You are the observer, the one who can keep moving even while wounded. And repeating this mantra helps you resist being swept away by negative thoughts. It acts as an anchor when your mind wants to drift into panic. It is not empty consolation, but a truth proven across thousands of generations, that no night lasts forever and dawn always arrives on time. When you begin to accept the impermanence of all things, you no longer react violently to every disruption. You learn to stand still in the storm without panic. You understand that pain is not the end, but only a phase, and it will pass. And when it does, you will be different, more resilient, more self-aware, more profound. You may not see it immediately, but one day, when you look back, you'll realize that the moment you thought was unbearable made you grow more than any other lesson. This mantra isn't just for sadness. It applies to joy, excitement, and success as well. When you're at your peak, don't forget that this too shall pass. This truth isn't meant to discourage, but to help you live humbly and fully in the present. When you're happy, live it completely, knowing it won't last forever. When you're sad, be patient with it, knowing it too will pass. And if today is a bad day, if you feel like everything is falling apart, close your eyes, take a deep breath, and quietly repeat, this too shall pass. You don't have to force yourself to be okay right away. You only need to know that you're moving through, not staying stuck. You're still living, moment by moment, breath by breath. And that act of continuing, no matter how small, is proof of your strength. In the end, remember, nothing lasts except change. And because change is certain, you can be assured that your current suffering will eventually give way to peace. You don't have to rush. You only have to continue. Because you've made it before, and you will again. Mantra 2. I am stronger than this moment. There are moments in life when everything seems to collapse. A sudden piece of bad news, a painful failure, a betrayal that defies explanation. Everything blurs, and even breathing feels heavy. In those times, it's easy to believe you are too weak, that you can't endure anymore. But the truth is, that feeling belongs only to this moment, while your strength extends far beyond it. The mantra, I am stronger than this moment, is not self-soothing. It is a truth you once forgot, and now is the time to remember. Look back at your past. All the times you thought you wouldn't make it, yet did. The days you fell, but rose again. The nights you cried in silence, yet still got out of bed the next morning, still lived, still cared for others. That strength didn't come from a miracle. It came from you, from within, whether you realized it or not. Each time you face a challenge, no matter how small, you lay the foundation for a resilience that no one can take away. Stoic philosophy teaches that true strength doesn't come from avoiding hardship, but from accepting and overcoming it. Just as muscles grow only under pressure, your mind and spirit grow stronger only through being tested. So do not see this painful moment as evidence of your weakness. See it as training, a test the universe sends to help you discover the depth of your inner power. You don't have to prove anything to anyone. Just keep going. Even one small step is enough to affirm that you're still moving forward. This moment may make you doubt yourself. It may sit heavy on your chest and cloud your thinking. But remember, a moment is only a point in time. It does not define your entire life, and it certainly does not define your worth. When you tell yourself, I am stronger than this moment, you are reclaiming sovereignty over your mind. You are choosing not to be ruled by fleeting emotions, but to live by reason and lived wisdom. Sometimes, the task isn't to conquer everything at once, but simply to survive hour by hour, minute by minute. To sit quietly with the pain and remind yourself, I've felt worse, and I still stood up. Every time you choose not to give up, every time you breathe deeply instead of screaming, every time you close your eyes instead of breaking down, you are building inner strength. And that repetition, in silence, unseen, is the purest expression of courage. You don't have to wait for the storm to pass to feel strong. You are strong now, in this very moment, because you are enduring, choosing to stay upright, even when your mind begs to collapse. And even if no one sees it, it still matters. Because it's in the darkest hours that true strength is tested, and you are proving it moment by moment. Repeat this mantra whenever your heart trembles. I am stronger than this moment. It won't erase the pain, but it will remind you that you are not confined by this moment. You are the one who will move through it, as you have before, as you are doing now, and as you will continue to do, every time challenge comes again. Mantra 3. Pain is temporary, growth is forever. There is a simple yet profound truth we often forget when we're in pain. Pain always has a limit, but the growth that comes from it does not. What leaves you breathless today will one day become a distant memory. It may still linger like a scar on the soul, but it won't sting the way it once did. And what remains after everything is not the pain, but what you've learned and the person you've become after walking through the storm. Stoic philosophy teaches that while we cannot avoid pain, we can use it. Every hardship is an opportunity, every wound a doorway. You don't grow from what's easy. You grow from the hardest days, from the moments when you thought you would break, but chose instead to keep going. While pain only lives within a specific chapter, the virtues forged through it, courage, patience, self-control, understanding, remain with you forever. When you're drowning in hurt, the mantra, pain is temporary, growth is forever, reminds you that you are not just a victim of circumstance. You are in a process, a quiet rebirth. Pain doesn't come to destroy you, it comes to purify you. Just as fire consumes wood to produce charcoal, adversity burns away illusion, complacency, and the superficial, leaving behind a core that is stronger and more real. You are no longer the same person after enduring pain. You become more grounded, more compassionate, more profound. Recall a time in life when you thought you couldn't go on, yet you found yourself living, laughing, doing things you once didn't believe you had the strength to do. Time doesn't erase pain completely, but it allows you to look back with different eyes. Not the eyes of a victim, but of a survivor. One who understands that it was precisely those uncomfortable moments that built the strength within. Pain in the moment can make you feel small, helpless, panicked. But growth happens silently in those very moments. Each time you sit with your emotions without running, you build steadiness. Each time you choose reason over impulse, you lay a new foundation for your soul. These are the lessons no book can teach. Only experience can engrave. And the truth is, you don't need to overcome the pain for growth to begin. It begins the moment you choose to face it instead of flee. It continues when you endure it without letting it define you. And one day, you'll realize it was in those most difficult times that you built the strongest parts of your inner self. Always remember, pain is just part of the journey, not the destination. It has no right to decide who you are or where you're going. Only you hold that power, and by continuing forward with persistence and integrity, you turn each painful moment into the foundation of your lasting growth. This mantra doesn't erase pain, but it recenters you. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" you begin to ask, "What can I learn from this?" And when you learn to see pain as a teacher instead of an enemy, you enter a phase of growth no one can take from you, because it has been forged in the very fire of your life. Mantra 4. Adversity is my training ground. If you want to become stronger, you cannot simply hope for an easy life. If you desire inner fortitude, you cannot avoid challenge. And if you want to become the best version of yourself, you must accept that adversity is not a curse, but the harshest and most honest trainer life can give you. The Stoics understood this. They didn't pray for a smooth path. They only hoped for enough reason to face the rocky turns, because it is in those sharp bends that character is sharpened and courage is forged. The mantra, "Adversity is my training ground," is not a call for masochism or indifference to suffering. It is a deliberate mental posture. It offers a new frame. Rather than seeing hardship as an enemy, see it as a workout. Every setback is a chance to train the mind. Every failure is a trial by fire for the will. Every rejection, misunderstanding, or wound becomes a lesson in calm, self-mastery, and awareness. Just as you cannot lift heavier weights by repeating the light ones, you cannot develop spiritual depth by living only in comfort zones. In Stoic thought, there are no problems, only material for cultivating virtue. When you shift your view of adversity, everything starts to change. Pressure is no longer a threat, it's a measure of your endurance. Stress no longer breaks you, it becomes a stage for practicing calm. When you accept adversity as part of the process, you stop resisting life and start collaborating with it. A training ground is never comfortable. It demands discipline, perseverance, and will. But it is the only place where you realize you're capable of more than you thought. While you're in the hardship, you don't always see the change, but afterward, when the dust settles, you look back and realize you've become more composed, more clear, more courageous. What you learn from adversity is never wasted. It builds an inner foundation no favorable condition could ever provide. When a soldier trains in harsh conditions, it's not because he hates himself. It's because he wants to survive and fight better when the real battle comes. Likewise, when you face challenges with purpose and acceptance, you are preparing for the days when life tests you without warning. And by then, you won't be shaken. You've already trained. Peace doesn't come from eliminating adversity. It comes from knowing you are strong enough to pass through it. Every hardship is a test, and passing it doesn't require perfection, only that you don't quit. Ask yourself, what am I training today through this situation? Maybe it's patience. Maybe it's forgiveness. Maybe it's the courage to say no when needed. The training ground never looks the same, but the result is always growth. So don't wish adversity away. Wish instead to be strong enough to use it as your practice ground. When you accept that adversity is your training ground, you are no longer a victim of circumstance. You become your own craftsman. You can't control what happens, but you can turn whatever happens into a lesson, a step forward, and a quiet proof of an unshakable strength. One not visible to the eye, but felt deeply in the way you continue to move forward, in silence and without the need for applause. Mantra 5. What stands in the way becomes the way. When we face hardship, our first instinct is to avoid it. When we confront failure, we often want to turn away, and when one door closes, many people wait idly for another to open, instead of turning around to find the handle on the very door that just locked. The mantra, "What stands in the way becomes the way," is not merely a philosophical notion. It's a call to action, a radical shift in how we perceive challenges. Marcus Aurelius, an emperor and a Stoic philosopher, once wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Within that single line lies the core spirit of Stoicism, that what we see as obstacles are, in fact, the raw material through which we grow, train, and rise to a higher version of ourselves. Avoiding difficulty is not the solution. Moving through it, learning from it, and transforming it into the ground for personal growth. That is the true path. Think back on your own life. Weren't the greatest turning points and most profound changes born from disruption? You didn't grow because things went smoothly. You grew because you stumbled, you fell, and you got back up. Obstacles signal that you are approaching an old limit, and that limit needs to be expanded. Without barriers, you'd never know how far you could truly go. This mantra doesn't demand that you feel comfortable with pain. It only asks that you observe it with courage. When you look directly at what hurts you instead of avoiding it, you begin to see that what scares you is not the circumstance itself, but the emotions that come with it. And once you learn to master your emotions, you'll realize that nothing truly stops you except the untrained mind within. Sometimes what you perceive as an obstacle is exactly what you need to evolve. A failure can teach humility. A betrayal can teach boundaries. A loss can remind you to cherish what you have. Every time you meet hardship and choose not to turn away, you're strengthening an inner muscle no one can see, but that shapes your entire life. Perseverance. Hardship is not a sign that you've lost your way. It's a sign that you are on the right one. If everything feels too easy, perhaps you haven't stepped out of your comfort zone yet. But when breathing gets hard, when you want to give up, when everything feels uncertain, that's the moment when your old self can no longer continue and your new self is waiting to be formed. You don't have to solve everything at once. Sometimes, one small step toward what scares you is already a victory. Every time you choose to face instead of retreat, you're redefining your relationship with adversity. You're no longer a victim. You become the agent who transforms obstacles into lessons, pain into wisdom, and disorientation into a new direction. This mantra is not simple, but it is one of the most powerful tools for building inner resilience. Every time you face something you want to run from, ask yourself, what if this isn't a wall, but a door? And you may be surprised to find that sometimes the real opening is right where you thought everything had ended. Mantra 6. I control my mind, not the other way around. We spend most of our lives inside our own minds. What happens out there, what people say, events that unfold, the circumstances we encounter, is only a small part. Most of our inner experience comes from how we think about those things. And the sad truth is that most of us don't realize it is our own mind that causes the majority of our suffering. It is not the world that hurts us, but how we interpret the world. That's why the mantra, I control my mind, not the other way around, is a revolutionary reminder that we can reshape our entire inner world by simply taking the wheel. Stoic philosophy never denies emotion or belittles the mind. On the contrary, it places mental mastery at the center of personal freedom. Epictetus once said, "It's not things that disturb us, but our judgment about them." The mind is not an invincible tyrant. It is a tool, a sharp blade. Used properly, it helps us analyze, navigate, and understand the world. Left unchecked, it turns inward, cutting us with anxiety, anger, regret, and fear. To control the mind does not mean eliminating every negative thought, nor does it mean obsessively micromanaging every mental impulse. Mastery here means having the awareness to notice when the mind is drifting too far, when it's leading you into a maze of assumptions, projections, and imagined catastrophes. And then, instead of following it, you pause, observe, and choose a different course. That is the conscious intervention between stimulus and response. A small yet powerful space where you can change the entire trajectory of your emotions and actions. You weren't born knowing how to control your mind, but you can train it. Like a muscle, the mind strengthens through habit. Every time you catch a negative thought, decide not to believe it, you grow stronger. Every time you choose calm over impulsive reaction, you reinforce your sovereignty. Over time, you're no longer dragged around by the mind. You're holding the reins. The mind can be a sanctuary or a prison, depending on whether you build it consciously. A person who pays no attention to their thoughts is easily drowned in nameless anxiety, unspoken fears, haunting memories, and imagined futures. Meanwhile, the one who observes their mind will find that most fears, most doomsday scenarios, and most inner criticisms aren't real or don't need to be believed. And simply by not believing them, you are already free. The mantra, "I control my mind, not the other way around," is a declaration of choice. You're not obligated to believe every thought your mind throws at you. You can watch them drift by like clouds in the sky, light, harmless, passing. True power lies not in erasing all negative emotion, but in not letting it dictate your behavior or define who you are. You can acknowledge fear, greet it, and still move forward. You can hear the inner critic and still choose to live by your values. That is freedom. And if your mind feels too chaotic right now, pause for a moment. Take a deep breath. Watch the stream of thoughts rushing by like cars on a highway. You don't have to catch them all. Just remember, you are the observer, not the captive. The mind is not the master. You are the one who chooses what to believe, where to focus, and how to act. That is your greatest strength, and you can begin using it this very moment. Mantra 7. The only thing I control is my response. None of us can fully control life. You cannot stop others from hurting you, cannot bend the weather to your will, and certainly cannot command the flow of life, which moves in unpredictable ways. But that doesn't mean you are powerless. On the contrary, Stoicism reminds you that in this chaotic world, you still hold one supreme power, the power to control your own response. And sometimes, that's all you need to maintain your composure and dignity in the midst of life's storms. Every situation is neutral until you assign it meaning. A careless remark can be seen as an insult or simply someone's clumsy expression. A failure can be viewed as proof of inadequacy or as a valuable lesson on your journey of growth. You cannot control other people's actions, but you absolutely can control how you receive and respond to them. That is the foundation of self-mastery and the very core of Stoic philosophy. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If you are pained by anything external, it is not this thing that disturbs you, but your own judgment of it, and it is in your power to wipe out that judgment now." What happens outside you is only one part of the story. The rest, and the more important part, is how you interpret it and how you choose to respond. When you learn to pause between stimulus and response, you stop acting out of impulse and begin living by reason. That is the shift from passive living to intentional living. Response is not always a word or an action. Sometimes the best response is silence. Sometimes it's a nod instead of an argument, a deep breath instead of rage, a decision to not engage with negativity, even when it surrounds you. When you master your response, you're no longer pulled by passing emotions or the provocations of others. You become steady like a rock in the current. Water may crash against it, but it does not move it. To control your response also means to take full responsibility for your inner life. No more blame. No more excuses. Others may be wrong, but you alone choose how to respond. And that is a silent, extraordinary power few dare to hold. Because it is far easier to blame circumstances, to rage at others, or to complain about fate. But Stoics do not seek ease. They seek truth. And the truth is this: A person's character is shaped not by what happens to them, but by how they respond. When you begin to practice this mantra, you'll notice something interesting. You feel lighter, freer, because instead of trying to control what's beyond reach, you focus all your energy on becoming the person you want to be. You act not from pressure, but from inner values. And gradually, you will find yourself no longer a victim of life, but a co-creator of it with every deliberate response. And if today someone hurts you, if something doesn't go as planned, take a step back and whisper to yourself, I cannot control everything, but I can control my response. In that moment, you will feel the kind of inner freedom no one can take from you, a freedom not born of the outside world, but of your own inner realm, where reason, virtue, and calm are always waiting for your return. Mantra 8. Worrying only borrows sorrow from the future. Worry is one of the most natural human reflexes. It arrives silently, seeps into every corner of the mind, and convinces us that by overthinking all possible outcomes, we're preparing for the future. But in truth, worry doesn't solve anything. It doesn't prevent bad things from happening. It only makes you suffer twice. Once in imagination, and once if it actually happens. And most of the time, what you fear never comes to pass. Stoicism teaches that there is nothing more wasteful than losing the present to a future that has not yet arrived. When you worry, you burden yourself now with sorrow over something that isn't real. You borrow fear from tomorrow and pay with the peace of today. It is an unfair and meaningless deal, yet we make it every day because we haven't yet learned to see through the nature of anxiety. Think back. How many times have you worried yourself sick over something that never happened? Or if it did, wasn't nearly as bad as you imagined. And on the flip side, unexpected things have come your way, and yet you handled them when they actually occurred. This proves one thing. Your capacity to cope exists in the present moment, not in the hypothetical scenarios you construct in your head. Worry is born from the urge to control what lies beyond reach. And the irony is, the more you try to control, the more helpless and anxious you feel. The Stoics did not try to predict the future. They focused on living well in the present, because that is the only place where they had the power to act. Epictetus once said, "Some things are up to us, and some things are not." Worry arises when we forget where that boundary lies. The mantra, "Worrying only borrows sorrow from the future," is a reminder to return to the present. When you find yourself caught in a spiral of anxious thoughts, stop, take a deep breath, and ask, has this happened yet? Can I do anything about it right now? If not, can I set it down until it actually needs to be addressed? You don't need to fight worry with force. You only need to recognize it, set it aside, and move forward with clarity. Practicing this isn't easy, but it is the path to inner freedom. Every time you choose presence over projection, you reclaim a piece of your peace of mind. Because life is not a long chain of imagined outcomes. Life is what's here, now, and worry has no rightful place in it. I didn't write these mantras from cliches or textbooks, but from the lived experience of someone who has wrestled with anxiety, disorientation, and a deep sense of helplessness toward life. There were days I woke up feeling I didn't have the strength to face the world, but then I learned something. The mind is not the enemy, it is something to be trained. Each mantra didn't change my life overnight, but they served as markers that helped me pause, breathe, and not be swept away by emotion. They didn't make the pain disappear, but gave me a way to move through it without losing myself. When I started mastering my responses instead of being driven by circumstances, I felt lighter, freer. That's what I want to pass on to you, not answers, but tools for you to walk your own path with presence and awareness. If you found this content meaningful, please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you won't miss future content. And no matter how many storms life may send your way, always remember, you are stronger than you think. See you in the next video.